All right, so I got distributor back in. Got the oil changed, new oil filter. Got the system primed up. So now this next step I'm going to do is I pulled all the spark plugs out. I'm going to pull all the spark plugs on the other side. I'm just going to explain this process. So you get all your spark plugs out, and then you're going to take like WD, something like that, go into the spark plug hole, load it up a little bit like that. Doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be WD-40 penetrating oil. They have those foggers. I love to use the stable fogger spray, especially when I winterize my buddy's boat. That stuff's great. If you just have an oil can with a little bit of engine oil in it, just don't go too wild. You just want a little bit of wet in there. Once I pull the other set, I'm going to spray WD, so all 8 cylinders have WD in them with the spark plugs out. And when the engine's been sitting for a long time, this engine hasn't ran for 20 years, except for one short little bump. I started it a year ago. I did all this, started a year ago, but I'm still taking all precautions. This is my buddy's, and I'm trying to fix it up for him, and I don't want him to have me pull the engine and have the engine rebuilt just because I didn't take, an hour or two and do a few things beforehand to make sure that we don't cause damage internally in the engine. So anyway, pull those, do the other side, spray it all, and then you want to take a wrench and put it on the crank right down there if you can get it in there. If not, sometimes the belt's tight enough and you can get off like the alternator, the nut that's on the front of the alternator, things like that. We just want to rock that crank back and forth and turn the engine over by hand very first. Don't just do all of this and jump in and hit the starter. Make sure that the crank rocks. If for some reason it's rusted or something like that, we need to know now before we start grinding on the starter, because then you're going to have to take a different course of action. But so right now I'm going to spray that all in, make sure the crank rocks by hand. Then I'm going to put the battery in, and then I'm going to crank it with spark plugs out. Just crank it over for 4 or 5 seconds, something like that. Let that oil kind of splash around. I don't want the combustion pressure on the bearings, on the piston rod bearings. I don't want combustion pressure pushing on that. Right now, I want everything to move freely so that it can get oil around everything and distributed properly. But if I have the spark plugs in, then you're going to have combustion pressure on that. So that's why I'm going to leave the spark plugs out and just crank the motor over with it like that. The other thing that I've done is I removed all the old gas from the gas tank and clean the gas lines. I put a new fuel pump on this. I'm going to put some new fuel filters. Probably going to have to, I don't know, we'll see what the carburetor does, because that carburetor was put on a year ago, so it might be too gummy, it might not. It was the one that had been on here for 20 years, guaranteed that thing's probably going to have to come off and get cleaned thanks to ethanol fuels and not putting stabilizer in it. So if you are going to have a vehicle with a carburetor that's going to sit for a long time or is not getting used regularly, I highly recommend getting ethanol free fuel and then putting a stabilizer every time you fuel. But I just wanted to go over this process with you to save you a lot of money, because an ounce of prevention is way better than a pound of cure. And if you're already kind of on a budget, you don't have 2, 3, 4 grand to dump into an engine, or more depending on what your engine is and what you're doing. Right off the bat, this is a good way to try and help not create problems for yourself in the future by doing this a little bit before you start an engine that's been sitting for 20 years like this thing. Other than, like I said, the one time a year ago it started and ran for about 2 minutes and then was shut off. So just hopefully this helps you guys. I know it's not an FE, and I did this mostly for the FE group because I see a lot of guys in the comments that get barn finds or old engines and they start messing around with them. I used to be a yellow iron mechanic. I did that for many years, And it was nice with my service truck because you can actually, if you have that option, you can just pull out like the oil pressure sensor or something like that, tap a hose into there, and then just pressurize the system with the oil pump on my truck tanks. I did that many times on old pieces of equipment that had been sitting for years, and the owner decided they wanted to try and resurrect it. But anyway, just trying to help you guys out a little bit, save a little money. The last thing I recommend, I took the belt off of the air compressor and the smog pump. So the only belts that I've got on, and maybe even if this is out of fluid, maybe even the power steering pump. The reason being, this air conditioner system is probably, it's not charged anymore. It's probably lost all of its charge. And it's probably dried up. So there's no PAG oil in there lubricating anything. So if it engages and starts spinning, it's just gonna eat itself up, and then now you're gonna contaminate the air conditioner system. And when you take it to the AC shop, they're just gonna shake their head. Because if you've dealt with contaminated air conditioner system, it's ridiculous, because little pieces of aluminum shards go all over the system. It's almost impossible to clean it out. They clog things. It just makes it way more expensive. So when my buddy does go to get the air conditioner running, I remove this and recommended to him that he go straight to the air conditioner shop, or we have a radiator air conditioning shop that's all they do. Have him take it over there and let them resurrect this old system and take the precautions they need to keep from causing damage to it from sitting for so long. But hope you guys find it useful. Have a good day.